All right. Loden Sports, Outlier Session Season 2, getting underway with a repeat guest. Brendan Donovan of the St. Louis Cardinals. Best hair in the league.
Thanks for having me, Maddie. It's a pleasure to be here.
No problem at all. Thanks for coming on with us. Yeah, got a handful of questions for you today. Ask you a little bit about the big league experience. Last time we talked to you, it was 0 big league at-bats. Now it's a Gold Glove in the mail, hopefully getting there soon. Let's just kick it off with how we usually do it. Give me 3 things you're grateful for today.
Yeah, so 3 things I'm grateful for. Obviously, the first one, I'm grateful for another day. Second one, I'm grateful for my newlywed wife and her continuous support. We had our wedding this past weekend. And 3, probably the luxury to be able to work out and exercise pain-free. I feel like that's something that not a lot of people have, so I'm grateful for that.
Ooh, love that last one. Just got into a
yours.
conversation with someone today about body squats. And I was like, oh, they're really important, to be able to get into that position as you get older. And they're just like, I don't know, it might be a little overrated. I was like, it's not overrated.
It's funny you say that. My mom, my parents have spent a lot of time in other countries. My dad's deployments. They said that a lot of people would just sit in like a squat position, like waiting for the bus, or just if you got a minute and you're just hanging out, they would just like drop down into just a squat position and just hang out. So think about that next time you're sitting at the bus stop or wherever you are. Just see if you can hold that position for a little bit. See, it might pay off.
That's a gem right there. That's what I was telling the kids. So I was testing some kids last week. I was doing like a basic body squat, and for the kids that could do it, I was like, never lose the ability to do it. Just do it once a day for the rest of your life. It's like it takes 5 seconds, and like you won't lose that. For the kids that weren't able to do that, I was trying to tell them like, hey, get it back now, because the older you get, the harder it is to get it back. Anyway, besides the point, 3 things I'm grateful for today. One is on my laptop at the bottom, there's like a little bit of like a weather update. So it'll tell you like when the temperature is rising, or if temperatures are going to plummet, or if it's snowing or whatever it is. So I don't have to like actually open up an app, which is really nice, because it's like, oh, it's warming up out there. That's good news. 2 is that we haven't seen snow in like a week. I like the snow, but it's kind of nice to not have to worry about snow. And then 3 is daily mountain views. Just, you hop on the highway, you look to your west, and there's this beautiful mountains, snow-capped mountains. That view just does not get old. So those are my 3.
That is nice. I haven't seen snow in a long time, but then again, we have other side. I'm backwards here. If you can see over my right shoulder, we have palm trees. So,
Mr. Florida.
That's it.
That's a West palm tree right there.
Yeah. West. Nice. It's funny. I was pointing. I couldn't figure out which shoulder to point over. There it is, because everything's backwards in the camera. So that's the palm tree.
Happens to me all the time. Well, you better bring your beanie and get your gloves out for that trip to Colorado in April, because they will play even if it snows.
Yeah, it's going to be cold, and flying into Denver, it's always bumpy, which freaks me out. But anyone that's ever flown into Denver can attest to that.
There's worse problems to have, like traveling to your away games on a bus instead of a plane.
I've done plenty of that.
Good segue right here into the biggest differences between now being a big leaguer and the minor league life that came shortly before that. So I'm gonna kind of tee up. There's kind of 3 different levels to this question. From a competition standpoint, field, what's the biggest difference between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball?
Yeah, so from a competition standpoint, I think everything is just sharper, right? I mean, you're talking about competition. You're talking about the best people in the world at what they do, right? These guys are 1%ers, and mistakes like mistakes, whether it's on the bases, in the field, mistake pitches over the middle, whatever it may be, communication, it gets exposed. And so for as a hitter, we're always hunting weaknesses, but as you get throughout the minor leagues and as you start to get closer to the big leagues, those weaknesses are just few and far between. So it's all about, from at this point, it's just all about preparing to the best as you can, because you're facing the best guys day in and day out. And like I said, everything is just so much sharper. I mean, these guys don't miss, especially I think, speaking of pitchers, man, you like we used to say, we're going to talk about Barry Bonds. People didn't want to throw to him. He was getting one pitch to hit a night, and he was hitting it out of the ballpark, just to show you, like, these mistakes just get exposed.
Yeah, I can hear that loud and clear. I was just talking to a guy who just got an affiliated opportunity earlier today, and he's got a disgusting changeup, he's got a disgusting slider, and he's got a really good fastball that has a lot of life on it. And his biggest thing is just going to be throwing it for strikes. That's the biggest difference, because you can speak to it. Like, guys have really good stuff at every level of the minor leagues, but at the big leagues, they've got really good stuff and they don't miss.
Yeah, I was always told, especially in the minor leagues, guys like Rovers and everybody that come into town, or just our managers or coaches that we had at the affiliates, they would say the hardest part is not making it to the big leagues, it's sticking. And I was like, man, like, obviously it is very challenging to make it to the big leagues, but these adjustments, right? Let's say you have some success against a guy that night with all the data and everything out there, is like they can find your weaknesses like fast. And guys that just get called up from the minor leagues, they have all that data on you too. So it's like, how fast can you make adjustments? It truly is a league of adjustments. And so I know we're going to touch on this, but that's why it's so important to have these off seasons and be a self-evaluator, so you can clean up it, because everything is just so much cleaner and sharper.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue in the second bullet point here on the biggest difference between Major League Baseball and AAA. You talked about all of the data that you're getting. From a mental standpoint, I think there's the mental standpoint from the competition component, but then there's also the mental standpoint of like mental load on a day-to-day basis, preparation, studying, all of that. Talk about the difference between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball from a mental load standpoint.
Yeah, so there's so much data, and that can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. For example, when I first got called up, I'm like kind of wide-eyed, like I'm walking around on eggshells, like I don't really know what to expect. And luckily, someone brought me into the film room, like, hey, this is how you get to the relievers. At the time, I was kind of spot starting, just playing with guys who need days off, or pinch hits or pinch runs. So I'm watching. It's like, this is how you can see this guy's pick move, or this is how you can see the outfielder's arms, or this is the right-handed relievers you may get, or this is the starter you're going to get on the third day of the series. Just kind of, so that was like, all right. But I like to write things down. So in my notes, like, I'm like writing down like everything, like, oh, this guy loves his changeup in a 1-1 count. He throws it at this percentage of a clip, and he likes the breaking ball with 2 strikes. And then I would get in there and it'd be a 1-1 count, and it wouldn't be that changeup. And it's like, so for me, it's like, it was learning how to filter through the data, find what he likes, what I don't like, and what I like, and then kind of building a game plan based off of that. And then knowing, like, once you get in the box, like, you've prepared, obviously you have an approach, but from there it's just compete. So I think that's all that data, right? It can be a little bit of an overload. You need to be able to filter some of that stuff out. And there's other things like coming from a winning program, like there's pressure to win, right? There's pressure to win, and you're one of 26 guys there at the time. There's pressure to play well. So you're talking about all these pressures and different anxieties of winning and playing well. You want to stick in all these things. So you have to filter that in too. And also, in the minor leagues, the schedule's a little different. You play 6 on, 1 off. So, after that Sunday game, it's like, oh, like Monday's off. I'm just going to sit back. I'm just going to, just take it easy. I know I got Monday off. Sometimes, let's say you play a Sunday night baseball, and then the next night you're in another state, right? You play that 6 o'clock game, and you're popping forward into a different time zone. Like, that's when the sleep gets messed up. The recovery gets messed up. That's why you have to pay a little more attention to the diet, things like that. Like, okay, I shouldn't have a drink at dinner, like things like that. You start to plan ahead. So that's kind of where all the mental things start to come together.
Yeah, it sounds like the days can really speed up on you.
Oh, especially early on too.
Well, thanks for breaking all that down for us. I don't think that's that's not something that a lot of people appreciate when they turn on the TV and they turn on a big league game. Especially nowadays, a lot of people are just turning it on and they're like, "Oh, it's baseball. It's boring to watch, whatever." But like every single one of those dudes on that field who's wearing a cap or a helmet or whatever it might be in the dugout, like the mental load. And I think we all know this as human beings. We only have so much bandwidth on a day-to-day basis for information and for whatever else. And sounds like most of that for a major league ball player goes to preparation and maintenance, really.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, like, so you spend all this time focused on recovery and like just being comfortable, like with where you're at. As when I say that, like just like being aware of like your breath work and stuff to just kind of regulate you, or you're studying. And then I think like when it's time to play, you've already done all the prep work that you need. I think that's when you can just like flip into compete mode. And I think that allows you to take some of the load off mentally. Because if you're thinking about a lot of those things, like while you're out there on the field, that's when the game starts to snowball on you and speeds up on you. So I think that's important for any young kids listening is you've done the prep work. Now it's just go compete. Let me go out there and let me make this pitcher's day tough. I want to grind through at bats, and in the field, I'm not going to take any pitches off. And then after the game, take some time, reflect on the positives. Don't dwell on the negatives, but I mean, check them out. You have to understand that there's always going to be negatives in this game. And then that's when you get back. Okay, let's evaluate today. How can I improve? Flush it, move on tomorrow.
Brendan Donovan's school of self-evaluation.
We'll get to, well, I know we're going to touch on that in a minute.
We'll go down that road. Last one, and this one's a little bit more fun, maybe. What's the biggest difference between Major League Baseball and minor league baseball from a lifestyle perspective?
Yeah, lifestyle perspective. Obviously, St. Louis has a very passionate fan base. So for me, I was just always it's just playing baseball, right? I'm just going to go play baseball. But there's a lot of things you don't realize, like when you walk out of the stadium, people recognize you. So that was kind of strange to me. I never wanted to be someone that was in the spotlight. You now have media, like there's a camera on you at all times. Everything you say or do is under a spotlight. So I think it's important to just being self-aware. You want to be a strong role model. You want to represent your family well, but you also want to represent for the younger generation too, whatever you want to display to them, whether it's, it's doing the right thing off the field, playing hard on the field. Like, I think that's kind of where the lifestyle thing that for me, that was a little bit of a tough adjustment. Cause I just always thought I could just play baseball, but it's not that. You are now a role model at this point. So you need to take the time, you need to interact with the fan base and do things like that. Cause it is important.
Yeah. And the big league hotels are nicer too, right?
They're a little bit nicer. Yeah. No red roof inns.
There you go. All right. Feedback loop. You talked about how much data is in your universe on a day-to-day basis, but not just, day-to-day, but also looking at it from a more long-term perspective. End of season, what's the feedback loop look like? There's access to all your information on the internet. People are writing articles about you. People are sending you articles that were written about you. That's all different information that you got to take in. Where do you get your information from? How do you comb through it? And then, how do you go about attacking that from an off-season standpoint?
Yeah, luckily from our performance side, we have an app that we all have on our phone that gives us like our performance testing. It gives us practice reviews. We have in-game reviews. It has like all of our batted ball profiles. So for me, it's first off, I want to self-evaluate. What are some areas that I didn't like? What are some areas that I did like? And then I think it's sometimes we see our quote unquote flaws and we want to turn them into strengths, and we forget about our strengths and then they turn into flaws, and it's just like the continual. And sometimes those flaws don't even turn into strengths, and then our strengths just turn into flaws, and now we're just kind of back to ground zero. So I think it's important to understand what you're good at and what kind of player you are at first. And then two, not everybody can really cover for me. Like not everybody can cover the whole dish. I can't cover the whole dish. I mean, there's times maybe when you're unconscious and you just are in your flow state and you just feel like that you can, no matter what he throws, I can hit it. But like that's pretty rare throughout the course of a season. So for me, it was like taking my flaws and turning them into areas that I can just survive, right? If I'm in a position where I know this guy likes to throw cutters and then front hip sinkers, how can I survive in there? How can I go out there and how can I compete instead of just being like, oh, I'm just going to try to pull this guy for a homer? Well, now that's not my game. Now he's already beat me, right? So that's kind of how I evaluate that. And then actually a good one is Baseball Savant too. I'll go in there and I'll look at stuff. Like I remember we were looking at like some of the sprint data. I'll look at my average exit velocities on there just to kind of see. I made an adjustment towards the end of the year where I stood a little taller and I started to hit the ball harder throughout the course of a season, like after the second half. So I realized that was a good adjustment. And then two, the app, the Loden app is like I will track data throughout the course of a season. You can also look for ways that you can prevent injury. You can see, I know we're going to touch on this in a minute, but how my off-season training is going. And then so you take all that information and you sit down. For me, I write it down like after the season, like what do I want to work on? And I'm like, all right, well that's realistic. Let's put an emphasis on this. All right, maybe that's not that realistic. We can throw that out. Like, and then you kind of fine comb it down and you're like, all right, this is the game plan. And then I communicate with off-season staff, and then you go from there. So you're not just like throwing stuff at the wall and hoping it sticks. You have a game plan, so you can really. It starts here, and then as the season starts, it just kind of hones in together and trends at the right time.
Yeah, I think from a fan's perspective, big leaguer, the season ends, and it's like they forget about you until spring training. They don't realize that's where a lot of the real work happens.
Right.
And to your point, it sounds like you've got a really nice system there to be able to gather the information, identify the areas that you need to work on, and then attack them. So, no, that's a really cool look. So, what specific areas did you attack this offseason?
Yeah. So I changed my training this offseason. I think in the past, I've always been a stronger guy. I've always jumped decent. I've always had pretty good grip strength. So for me, it was like, why don't I hit the ball that hard? Like last year, I had a 110 and when I was in AAA, and then my peak in the big leagues was like 107. I was like, well, for every 1% you can hit the ball harder, that's 25 expected slugging points. So it's like you're talking about 1%. I want to hit the ball 1% harder, which is 1 mile an hour, right? So you get that up just a tick, or you can get your average velocity up 1%. You're talking about like your production going through the roof. But while still doing what I do well, a lot of contact, hit some line drives, hit the ball where it's pitched, use the whole field, see pitches, not just getting up there and ambushing, making guys work. So I think that all roped back into my training. How can I get the most out of my body? I want it to move efficiently. I want it to organize the right way, and I want to be able to own patterns and positions. So Goldie actually set me up with a guy down in Florida. And like one of the first days I was talking to him, he was like, all right, well, you're strong. But it's like shooting a cannon out of a canoe, right? So you just don't have the transmission to hold that energy, right? It's my pelvis wasn't very stable. So you get energy from the ground, it goes up your kinetic chain. But for me, I was just losing energy. So it's like, now I want to learn how to use the ground. I want to create stability in my pelvis. I want to work on some internal rotation of my hips so I can load into my backside. And then from there, I want to be able to unload it. So that's all you're learning how to train in sagittal, frontal, and transverse planes. Whereas in the past, I just kind of I'm just going to squat. I'm going to deadlift. I'm going to, I wasn't training rotational and sport specific. So I think that was the biggest thing for me going into the off season.
Yeah. And something that I've loved just from our conversations, and the trainer's name is Colby Wayne Tullier. So we'll put his information somewhere for you guys to check it out if you'd like. Highly recommend it. It's just that it's a really good combination of sports specific training, but also it's dynamic, it's explosive, and it's focused on training power. So I think there's a lot of strength coaches out there that maybe don't attack that. Maybe they're more traditional and they're into Olympic lifts, which are great for getting strong. I think that there are a lot of coaches out there that are very into getting more powerful, explosive, and fast. And I think from everything that you've provided me from a feedback standpoint, Goldie steered you in the right direction in terms of really good combination of getting you more explosive, but also doing it in a way that is specific to your sport. I know from what you've told me that Goldie also works with professional golfers, high-level professional golfers, and they're also high-level rotational movers. So it makes a lot of sense. And I think for people out there who maybe don't fully understand why a golfer needs to go strength train, I think looking up the Instagram page of Colby Wayne Tullier could really shed some light on the different ways that golfers are high-level athletes and need to produce force and need to be powerful and explosive. So anyway, there is something I want to go back to that you mentioned very briefly. You mentioned a stat about your expected slug. If you can, would you say hit the ball harder?
Yeah, if you can hit the ball 1% harder, kind of how like the analytics breaks down, it says 25 expected slugging points. That's just kind of just from being in and around data over the past year. I started to realize like hitting balls harder, and I'm not talking about for me. I'm not talking about hitting balls higher. I want to do damage on a line because I know the kind of player that I am. If I can hit the ball harder on a line, then those balls get into gaps. And if I do get the right angle on one and I hit it harder, then you're talking about getting a ball out of the ballpark. Something that I didn't do a ton last year. It's just like, but I think that all loops back into just moving better, right? If you can move better, then your body is able to like hold and maintain positions a little bit longer.
So let's do a little connection here, because I think this is great for anyone who might be a younger listener here, because there's an amateur baseball with throwing harder and hitting the ball harder. And oftentimes it is, while that may be the objective, and you just kind of spoke to why that's the objective, because it directly translates. You hit the ball harder, and for pitchers, if you throw the ball harder, there's better expected outcomes in baseball that are associated with that. But let's just talk about how Brendan Donovan doesn't want the ball harder by swinging out of his shoes. Brendan Donovan wants to hit the ball harder with the same swings that he was taking last year. I think that's an important concept, where everything that you just talked about from a training standpoint, producing more force, stabilizing your pelvis, and all of those different things that allow you to hit the ball harder, allow you to do so without swinging out of your shoes, while able to maintain, your swing as it currently stands, and do more damage with your swing and not a sellout for exit velocity swing that a lot of people are chasing artificially at the amateur level. So just kind of like, I don't know, speak to that, because I think that's really important for kids to hear.
Yeah. So for me, I don't believe in jeopardizing technique for speed. If you don't have technique, you're still not going to be successful, even if you do hit the ball harder. There's guys that have sound technique, lack speed, and still have a lot of success. More success than the guys that just have a ton of speed. I'm talking like exit velo or just bat speed or whatever it is, but lack technique. So if you can take a swing that is consistent, that requires less effort, and you ever seen guys that swing it like, man, like that looks easy. That looks easy, but the ball jumps off their bat. That's just someone that moves efficiently. And so and when we're in the cages, we want to hit the ball. Our goal is to hit balls 95 miles an hour, on a line, or depending on the guy, in the air with the least amount of effort possible, because that means you're moving efficiently. And you think about over the course of a season too, if your technique isn't great, then you could tweak something in your back, your oblique, like something gets out of whack, that over the course of the season, it just doesn't work. So if your body's moving efficiently, I'm consistently scoring the ball up, you're going to have a lot more success than if you're just like, I'm going to put everything into this swing, but when I hit it, it's going to go far, but I don't hit it that often. So I think, I don't know how accurate this is, but like line drives, like like the expected average on them is like gotta be over 700. Like, so if you can just spray line drives around the field, that's usually sound technique. I don't know if anybody saw the Joey Votto video where he was talking about, did you see it, Matt?
No.
So he was talking about good direction. It's hitting the ball flat. It's hitting the ball low with backspin, ball that one hops to center fielder. And then he talks about, he's like, when he telling himself to sit still so he can track and he can read the ball, but while also still creating a little bit of movement towards the pitcher so he can max out his bat speed. So he's talking about he wants to like be in a good, strong position and be still while also maxing out his bat speed so he can be consistent. But he's talking about like that good direction, hitting the ball low, hitting the ball with backspin. And so I think that's a good teaching moment too. And I saw that I saw it on his Instagram, and I thought, wow, that's a really good video and a good teaching point for younger generation too.
All right, so hit the ball harder without sacrificing technique or approach, right?
Yeah, in a roundabout way. Sorry, I started.
No. It was really good. It's really good insight. How many hours do you spend per week training either in the gym or speed work out at the field? And I'm not talking about baseball stuff. I'm talking about training you're trying to help you from an athletic standpoint hit the ball 1% harder during a week in your off season.
Okay. So lift 3 times a week and sprint twice a week. So while I work out for an hour, but that means I'm getting there early and I'm doing like foam rolling, prep work, mobility. While I do have some mobility built into the lifts, that's kind of like the focus. So I would say probably 2 hours of just working on my body a day. Because you think about it, that's just like, it's not all at the same time. So let's say I work out from 8 to 9. I'm getting there 7:30, 7:45, making sure like I'm loose, I'm rolling out, making sure I'm just cleaning up tissue, making sure I'm ready to go. I'll work out there, and then I go to the complex to hit. Before I even hit, I'm working on like you ever seen like a K pulley before?
No.
It's like it's like a pulley system. So like it has a wheel on it, and when you pull it out, like it lets slack out, and then the wheel spins and it pulls it back in. I put on like a 3D strap, and I'm doing like load and then extending my hips out of that. So I count that as working on my body too, because I'm working on loading and getting out of it. I do other primers. I'll do like adductor rocks just on one knee. So I want to make sure that my hips are ready to extend and rotate. And then like halos to make sure that my core is engaged and ready to go. So I would say probably about 2 hours alone just on my body. That's not counting ground balls. That's not counting hitting. I count like the prep work all as body work.
Yeah, so it's basically a part-time job.
Yeah, and then when Matt sends me some stuff, I'll be standing on a foam pad in my living room, driving everyone crazy because we're trying to find a new static balance exercise.
Yeah, there we go.
throw another 10 minutes in there too.
Okay, so that's the off season, and then when you get in season, because a lot of people think, oh, I can work out all off season and I'm ready to go, and then here comes a 3-month season and they don't need to lift weights or take care of the body or anything. Like, what's the average on a day-to-day basis on top of everything else that you got to do to get ready game that you're spending on your body? You just break it down in terms of like how many times you lift a week.
Yeah, so I lift 2 times a week. I want to make sure I get those 2 lifts in. If I'm banged up at the time, I'll do like a blood flow restriction lift. It's just these cuffs that kind of like restrict the blood flow and then they let it out. And it's good for recovery while still getting some load in. And then like a ton of like first thing you do when you get to the field, you eat something, you change, and then you go to the weight room. You roll out, you do your corrective exercises, you do your mobility. You may do some med ball throws, whatever is in your program. So 2 lifts a week. If I'm playing every day, if I'm not playing every day, 3 to sometimes I would 5 times a week when I wasn't playing a whole lot, because I wanted to make sure when I did start playing that my body was prepared to handle that load, because it does take a toll on you. Like I know people say, oh, it's baseball, but you think about that guy, if you're in the first base side of the dugout and you're playing left field, like that is the far run. We all joke like, oh, you got the short run this week. Like that run wears on you. So, and if you're leading off that inning, like you're coming in from left field, you're pretty much sprinting in there, putting your stuff on, and then you're going up, getting ready to hit. Like it, and just being on your feet alone just wears you out. Your body cools down, your body warms up. It takes a toll on your body. So if I'm playing every day, at least twice a week, maybe mixing a third one, just depending on how I feel. A lot of rolling, mobility, med ball throws, whatever my primer is at the time. And then if I'm not playing, 3 to 5.
Tremendous insight there. Thank you, Brendan. The last piece that I don't know if you touched on here or not, and it's worth repeating if you didn't touch on it. I don't think you did, but I'm going to bring it up. In the category of if you don't use it, you lose it. Sprinting, at max effort, I guess you could say. Outside of in-game, how frequently are you doing that on a week-to-week basis?
Yeah.
How do you layer that in?
I say you can pick twice a week. If so, they do with the what is it, StatCast, and you got like Hawkeye and things like that, kind of track pretty much everything that's going on in the field. And our performance department does a great job of tracking it too. If you haven't hit 90% of your max speed in a couple days, like they're like, hey, like it's time to get some sprints in, because a soft tissue injury, like you said, use it or lose it, like hammies, quads, calves, hip flexors, even low back, like that stuff, if you don't use it, like it just goes. It needs that force. You have to produce that force to maintain it. So I think it depends on how many you've had. Like if you can kind of tell, like you're like, oh man, I ran for a triple last night. That was awesome, but I'm sore today. Because you're talking about, that's a max effort sprint. But if you haven't hit that 90%, you need to do that at least twice a week, I think. And then even if you've had a couple in game, you hit it once last night, and then you didn't hit it for 2 days, then I think you should get out on a field. Make sure your body's loose and ready to go, but then just mix in a couple so you don't have to worry about soft tissue stuff.
Yeah, I think max effort sprinting is, I think this is well known, but I don't think it's well known in the right populations, is one of the greatest preventers of soft tissue injury. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to sprint speed because that's, a risk for injury. But it's like, if you're doing that regularly, that actually significantly lowers your risk of soft tissue injury. And on top of that, obviously it keeps your performance at peak. So I think we both agree on this. Like pitcher, hitter, any sport out there that's not baseball, sprint multiple times a week. You don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah, it's just force production, right? You're teaching your body how to move fast as well. So you're getting from sprinting, you're getting stuff that's going to help you in the box, on the mound. Like it's all going to translate.
All right. So let's translate. Let's go to the baseball field a little bit. I got a couple fun questions here for you, and then talk about your goals for 2023, and then get you on with your day, back out to those palm trees. What was going through your head during your first big league at bat?
I was terrified. Like you work, Luckily, I was able to debut the night before. I debuted as a pinch runner, and then my first start in the big leagues was at first base. Goldie got the DH. I was at first. Bassett was throwing. We're playing the Mets, and I never played in front of that many people. And St. Louis fans are awesome. You're talking about 40,000 fans a night, even on a day game during the week, like work week. It's crazy. They're there, and so I'm just kind of like trying to take it all in at the same time. Like I've got like my knees are shaking, right? You've never experienced anything like it. So for me, it was just like I just had to like do some box breathing, like regulate, just tell myself, hey man, you're gonna be okay. Like it's fine. The game is the same. There's just more people here, and it's on a bigger stage. Like you're gonna be fine. So I get in there, and he throws. He starts me off strike one. I'm like, all right, whatever. Okay, no biggie. Throws another one, then I foul it straight back. I was like, it was a good one to hit. That was a good one to hit. Fouled it straight back. So that for me, I'm a little bit late. I was like, all right, like he's still got to come to you, right? You got good strike zone discipline. Like you're gonna be fine. Throws me a slider. I think it would have gone through my legs. I swung at it and hit a cue ball back to Bassett at like it had to come off at like 30 mile an hour, and it's just spinning. I was like, well, maybe it'll like run away from him, and I can just steal a knock out of it, get it out of the way. And you didn't hit it very hard when you hear the catcher, James McCann's like, take your time. You got plenty of time. I was like, oh, that ball's not hit very hard at all. But I remember I came back up my next at bat, and he goes, how did you hit that? I was like, dude, I have no idea. I was like, it was either, I can't remember. I think he said it or I said it. He's like, I think that would have gone through your legs. I was like, yeah, he said it. I was like, yeah, I think you would have been right. And from then on, I was able to laugh it off. Whatever, you're gonna be fine. And then I went up there. I think I got hit my next at bat. So I was like, all right, now I'm on base. Let's get a hit. And it took me like 3 days to get my first hit. So that was a long 3 days.
Dude, I can imagine. So that question was on Amari's question. My question in regards to your first big league at bat is something that I've always been curious about. I don't know what the exact number is, but anyone who has made a big league debut and has had a big league at bat, you got to imagine that like over 95% of them have gotten a hit in the big leagues after taking a big league at bat. It's got to be like a really high number, right? How many guys get to the big leagues, get an at bat, and don't ever get a hit, and then don't get a chance to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So my question is to you, and I remember when Alex Bregman debuted, and I think he was like 0 for his first 14 or something. It was something stupid like that. Right? Does it when you like get past your first at bat and you don't get that first hit, and then you get to your next at bat, you don't get a hit. You get to your next at bat, you don't get a hit, and you're like, at what point do you just feel like, is this never going to happen? Like, does that start to creep in a little bit every time you get up to the plate?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's human nature. You want to like obviously, even if they're good at bats, even if you hit the ball hard, like it's gonna happen. Like, and we want to panic. Like you're like, oh no, I gotta get it now. I gotta get it now. But it's like that's the worst thing you can do. Even though we all do it, it doesn't help the situation. So my advice would just be get a hit on the first, get a hit the first at bat, get it out of the way. Like my buddy Juan Yepes, he gets called up. I haven't gotten it. Did I? No, I don't. I did have a hit then, but I was like, it took me 4 or 5 at bats over a couple of days because I wasn't in the lineup regularly. And he gets up there his first at bat and hits a flare down the right field line for a double. I was like, I should have done that. And then he gets up there his next at bat and hits another one in the same exact spot. So he got 2 doubles in his debut. I was like, I should have done that too. So it's so that's something we get to laugh and joke about. But no, it's you definitely start to think like, oh, like I got to get it today. I got to get it today. But it's just like, take a step back, take a deep breath. You're going to get one. It's going to be fine. Just continue to just compete. Like if you just have quality at bats, then you're going to be fine.
I mean, that's a shared experience for every major leaguer who debuts who doesn't get a hit in their first bat. It's like, when's it going to happen?
And I think it's a cool thing. You get your first hit and everyone's like pumped for you. And for me, once after I had gotten my hit and I see someone else get my first hit, I'm like, man, that's awesome. Like I know exactly how they feel. And it's guys, even 10-year vets, they remember how they felt their first major league hit, right? Everyone's in the dugout going like this, and you see the ball just get launched into the dugout. You're like, that's really cool. And then I swear someone says this every time. They say, congratulations on your first hit. I hope you get 3,000, which is something really cool. It's really cool to hear that.
Yeah, that's neat. I didn't know that, but it sounds like a little bit of a baseball. We just got a peek under the curtain.
I guess it's a little tradition that you just passed down.
Yeah, did you just let us in on a secret of the game that we weren't supposed to know about?
Maybe you might know now.
We'll cut that.
It's out. It's out there.
Okay, so debuted last year, and then proceeded to play in your the first 4 starts in the big leagues. You played each of the 4 infield positions, and you went on to play plenty in left field and right field as well. You spelled Arenado on his days off at third. You play some shortstop, played a fair amount of second base. You even got a couple days in at first base behind Goldie, the NL MVP. You used all those gloves. And for the first time ever, Rawlings had a Gold Glove award for utility player. In your rookie year, you won. Pretty cool. What was it like to win a Gold Glove, and what was all the pomp and circumstance around it? I know you didn't want to go to New York. I mean, you wanted to go to New York.
Well, when you say it like that, it sounds kind of crazy. Yeah, man, I'm just truly blessed. I think that gold patch, for those of you that don't know, when you win a Gold Glove and you wear Rawlings, you get a gold patch. And only people that have won a Gold Glove have a gold patch on their glove. So you see anybody out on the field, if they have that gold patch, it means that they won a Gold Glove. And to me, I see that gold patch, I see that as like a testament of work ethic. I think so. Personally, for me, I'm very, very proud of that, because the question for me going into college, coming out of college, and even in the minor leagues was, well, we don't know where he's going to play. Doesn't really have a position. Like, wasn't great anywhere, but I was like, I'm not going to let my glove be the reason why I can't play in the big leagues. Like, I'm going to clean this up. And fortunately, I have an awesome staff with the Cardinals minor league system, major league system, that do a great job preparing me and putting me in scenarios to be successful all over the field. But I think anybody can win a Gold Glove. Anybody can win a Gold Glove, because defense is something that it's just work ethic, and it's time, and it's just putting in the hours, because that's all it is, right? I mean, obviously there are people that are genetically, maybe this guy's a little faster, but if you study the game and you work hard, you have a chance to win a Gold Glove. And that's how I see it, because that's how I won one. Like I just try to just go out there and I just try to outwork everyone, and I'll take pride in my defense, and that's something that I'll continue to do. So I cherish that gold patch.
Man. Love it. That's it. Look, I didn't really consider that, that's something that's been that many years in the making, but it makes sense now that you talk about it. Look, for the people listening, Brendan Donovan was not a high-level defender, and now a level defender at 6 positions. You two can play in the big league.
Just average at everything, right?
Yeah, you put your mind to it, and you went from being like, oh, this guy doesn't have a position, to this guy has all the positions.
And I think the utility role is something that I did a little bit in college as well. So I kind of understood it, but I've also been able to pick a lot of people's brains too. The Cardinals organization, they value defense at a high level. And I remember coming through the minor league system, I was like, dude, everyone on our big league team has a Gold Glove. Like, I'm looking around, our corner guys, Goldie Arenado, Gold Glove, Edmund, Gold Glove, DeYoung, Gold Glove finalist. Corey Dickerson, we signed him, Gold Glove. O'Neal, Gold Glove. Bader, Gold Glove. Yachty, 9 Gold Gloves. Like Arenado, 10, 5 platinums. It's like, holy, like that is insane. I was like, I need to play defense or I'm not going to play. And so I was like, that was another kick in the butt too, is like, if you're going to make it to the big leagues, you got to play defense. Like we value defense. And in the minor league system, that's what they teach you too. And we spent a lot of hours on defense.
Yeah,
and
if you're going to play in the big leagues with the St. Louis Cardinals, you better figure out how to play defense.
Yeah. And for me in that utility role, it's like, all right, Arenado's got the DH stay or he's off. That's a platinum defender. They don't expect me to be Nolan Arenado, but I need to play defense, right? Because he needs his day off. And that's how I see it too. I take a lot of pride in that. And I was like, I want these guys and I want the manager to be comfortable with me playing that position. He can have his day. Because I think over the course of a season, you have to give guys days off. You need it.
Yeah, Brendan Donovan's everybody's favorite teammate. Okay, I need a day off. Here, take my spot.
Okay. Comfortable being uncomfortable is what I call it, because you're spaced out all over the field. Sometimes I remember there's been a couple times where I've started a game in right field and then I went to first base and then I finished up the game at third base. And I was like, dude, these angles are weird. It's like you come in from outfield to infield. You're like, I'm so close. But it's a lot different when you go from the infield to the outfield. You're like, oh, okay. You come in from right field to first base. You're like, dude, I'm like right on top of this guy. Like there's so many different angles. So that's why in your prep work, even during the season, like you're not just like, oh, I'm just going to play. Like you have to prepare. You have to get your work in. If not, if you don't get it in, just like with sprinting, use it or lose it.
Yeah. And I mean, you think about, fraternities, right? And, I'm not a huge fan of fraternities in general, just as a thing, because they're right. But let's talk about the exclusivity. 1, of becoming a big leaguer. 2, of becoming a Gold Glover. It's, if you get the Gold Glove, you talk about that patch and how proud of that patch you are. But like you talked about the Cardinals and how important defense is. Everyone's got that patch on their glove. I mean, there's got to be a little bit of camaraderie there, and a little bit of comfort coming into spring training, just kind of knowing like, hey, like, I'm not a rookie anymore. And also check out this cool patch I got on my glove,
Right. I think definitely more comfortable coming into spring training. Last year was my first time in big league camp and I was on the roster. So not only was I new to camp, but I was competing for a spot. While I didn't make the team out of camp, I still thought I had a good camp and I was prepared to go to Memphis, our AAA spot. And then from there, I got promoted. This year going into camp, I know the guys. I know how camp works. I've been down here at the complex. So it's like, it's not a change of scenery for me. It's like I've been here. I've been doing my own little spring training for the last couple months. It's like now it's just like now I just wear baseball pants. It's like I want to be in that routine. So definitely a lot more comfortable this year.
Awesome. Favorite big league city other than St. Louis?
Okay, other than St. Louis, I like Boston. Family's from the Northeast. So I played in the Cape, so I kind of got to see it. But Boston's cool, man. My dad is a huge Red Sox fan, so we went to Boston. I'd seen Fenway Park before, but I had never played in there because we got rained out when we were supposed to have the Cape workout. So I'd never really been out on the field. And I know my dad got to come into town too, so we got to see it. We got to see Game 6 against the Warriors. I'm sorry, I know you're a Celtics fan.
I'm neutral when it comes to the NBA.
Okay. So got to see that. It's Boston itself is just pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay. So this might be the same answer. It might not. Other than St. Louis, favorite big league ballpark to play in?
Yeah. Other than Busch, this is actually a hidden gem. I like PNC Park in Pittsburgh. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. You got the Roberto Clemente or the 6th Street Bridge in the background. You got the skyline in the background, and I just think it's a beautiful ballpark. That or Wrigley. Wrigley's really cool.
Well, you're lucky because those are 2 ballparks in your division. So
Yeah, for sure. I get to see those a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about St. Louis, right? And obviously the ballpark's beautiful and it's a fantastic fan base, one of the best in all of Major League Baseball. Talk about the fans, and then kind of talk about the food, city a little bit. Like, what do you like about the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, so the I hinted on it earlier, but there are so many fans. There's such a passionate fan base, and I remember we were playing. Um, like I said, it was a day game during the week, and I was like, dude, there are 40,000 people here. I was like, where? Like, are they not like people don't work? Like, what's going on here? It was crazy to me. I couldn't fathom that there's so many people there on a day game in the middle of the week, and that shows just how passionate they were. And during the postseason, like it was loud, and that's saying a lot because it's loud every night. Like you get that playoff atmosphere pretty much every game. Like they're educated about the game of baseball. They love the game of baseball. They love the Cardinals, and they love winning. So that fan base is very very passionate and fun to play in front of. As far as I love the Hill. It's a spot we lived there this past year. It's a spot on the hill, and there's if you haven't been there, there's awesome Italian food there. You can just go drive around, go try some. That to me was fun, and it was cool to see kind of that like Italian just vibe in that area. I think it's called the Hill. It was really really cool, and I know you passed through there and you tried the sandwich shop. Tell them what you think about that.
Gramophone.
Yeah, good, right?
Gramophone, that's certified right there.
It's a good spot.
I take my food seriously.
You do.
And you're a hitter on the field, you're a hitter off the field too.
1 for 1 in your food book.
1 for 1. Yeah, I gotta try one of those Italian spots that you recommended.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple.
Yeah, next time I come through St. Louis.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I'm gonna ask you to share with us your experience using the Loden Sports Performance Lab app. It's something that we are really excited about in 2023. We're going to get it out to the masses here in about another month. There's a couple tweaks. You happen to be someone that obviously we've known for a long time and can find value in this, and been one of our beta testers. Talk a little bit about, one, how easy it is to use. One, what is it? Two, how easy it is, and then how it's helped you.
Yeah, right. So it's right here. It's simple. It's an app on your phone. It's just an athletic performance tracking system. So in the past we've used microgate off the jump. We've used force plates. We use jump mats. Well, you have all that pretty much in your pocket. So that to me is crazy. I don't have to bring anything but my phone. I have my wife. You open the app, you click on your name, you click on what jump you want to do. It's usually for us the three rebound jumps or the symmetry test, which is the 5 jumps on each leg. You put the camera on you. It's got the little red dot that you put on you. You jump, and then boom, it sends your data right to your table. For me, I've got the data over the last, what would you say, 2.5 years?
Yep.
2.5 years. So for me, that is insane to me. Like that is, you're talking about technology that is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and you have it on your phone, and you can just go outside in your backyard and just video it, and then you track that data. It controls everything, it tracks everything. So why do you need that? One, for me, it was like when we first started doing it, was like, am I at risk of getting injured? The most important thing for me is staying on the field. I want to be able to stay on the field. I want to perform. Okay. So when we started, it was left leg was a little stronger, but it lacked some stability. Right leg, it just wasn't there. Like, so you're talking about when I'm running, I'm producing all this force, but one leg is just not producing the same. So now I'm at jeopardy to soft tissue injury. So we cleaned all that up. I wouldn't have known that if I didn't have a way to test it. And then from there, all right, what's my power output? What's all this stuff? What's my RSI? All this stuff. All right, now I have that data, and I go through a full off season of training we jump once a week, and then every bi-monthly we do the single leg jumps. And what was it, right after New Year's we tested, and to show that my training was working, I PR'd in everything. It was like 3 rebound asymmetry jump. So for me, that's cold hard data that shows you what you're doing is working. Instead of, I cannot stand when I'm just like throwing things at the wall hoping they stick. I want the data to prove what I'm doing is working. So that's why I think this is extremely important. And I've been the guinea pig from the beginning. So I'm not going to put my stamp on it if I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not measuring, you're guessing. I think a ton of people have said that, and that's part of the reason why we're so excited about it. Because I think, there's so many things when it comes to ways to measure jump data, right? So whether it's force plates or a mat or an optical system or whatever it might be, this is super easy to use. Anyone can use it. Obviously, you said that. Your wife is the one who executes the test. It takes all of like seconds to do a jump test. And then the information is piped directly into a graph. You can see where you're at. And, it's allowing you to objectively train and, objectively measure all of the things that you're doing from a training standpoint.
Like that's the data over the last 2 years. Like it's easy.
We're super excited for you to be able to use that, as a source of biofeedback, in season for the first time. Obviously you can take it on the road with you. You can go anywhere where you're froze. It's a performance lab in your pocket. And yeah, it's great.
Another thing too, it actually can build confidence too. So we tested, this was in 21. We tested, I went, was it high A, double A, triple A, exhausted, went to the fall league exhausted, came back out of the fall league, and we tested, and my data hadn't sloped off any. So for me, it shows like, all right, so I may feel a little tired, but my body can still perform. So that goes to show you, all right, that means I was eating right, I was sleeping right, I was taking care of my body, I was getting my lifts in. So to me, that was a confidence thing to show like I'm doing the right things throughout the course of a season to maintain. So for me, that was a confidence booster.
Yeah, it validates everything that you do on a day-to-day basis. It helps you, confirm that you're doing the right things, and that extra 10 minutes of stretching or foam rolling or whatever that might be, making sure that you're getting to bed on time, making sure that you're not, eating the wrong things at the wrong hours. It's taking all of that and validating that you're doing the right things. Because I think there's a lot of times where we tell ourselves like, look, I know this is right for me. I know this is right for me. I know this is right for me, but I don't have a way to say for sure that it is. And that makes it really easy to slip and kind of fall off. And, I'm going to stay up until midnight tonight because I feel like it, that's not going to change things a whole bunch. You're someone who's been using a sleep tracker or a wearable for tracking your sleep. Yep.
Yep.
And, you're someone who obviously is not an exception in professional sports, who uses that information on a day-to-day basis, to monitor your physical readiness and your recovery and all of those different things. This performance lab in your pocket, Loden Sports Performance Lab, is an additional piece for you where it's like now you're tracking your sleep and you're tracking biofeedback from your jump testing. And it gives you the confidence on a day-to-day basis that you're doing the right things. You're doing the right things in training. You're doing the right things from taking care of your body standpoint. And when you go out on the field, you're the best version of Brendan Donovan. And I think that's kind of the peace of mind that is really nice to have, especially after all the things that are going through your head. Okay, here's a hard number. I don't need to worry about that.
Yeah, it's your accountability partner too. Like sometimes it tells you, you can tell. We ran into this, was like, hey, like over Christmas break, like hitting it pretty hard, like take a couple days, let your body recover, because that's another thing. It's like, yeah, you have to work hard, but you also have to recover. And that was the time that we had the PR and jumping.
And it was the same thing at the end of last offseason too, when you had to travel for a couple of days, and it was the first time where you weren't hitting your training super hard, and it was like everything shot up, So it's great feedback. I think it's great feedback from what you've said, So just trust us, trust Brendan Donovan.
Yeah. He made the app. Trust him.
Yeah, trust me. Anyway, let's move on from the app because we do want to ask you before we let you go. Personal goals for 2023. Anything you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I'm not a numerical. I do make goals, but I try not to do them numerically because in this game you can't really control that. Like there's only a couple things you can really control. So for me, I want to take the thought process, the preparation, the recovery, and I want to take that and I want to make it better. I want to pay more attention to my sleep. I want sometimes when that ice cream is yelling at me to come eat it, maybe I say no. Just be a little more disciplined because as you do start to get older, like you just don't your metabolism does slow down. So for me, it's just like taking everything I do and making it better. When I'm running the bases, I want to have sharper turns and I want to hit the bag of my right foot. I want to hit more balls on a line. I want to hit the ball 1% harder. I've been working really hard on my feet defensively because the feet control everything. It improves your arm because you're cutting out of the distance and you're creating momentum into the throw. It allows you to get to more balls. It allows you to be on time when the ball's crossing the hitting zone, and it gets you better hops. And then the biggest thing is just like play a little bit more fearless. All right. Let's say this guy does have a tip and you see the tip instead of sitting in the back of your head like, well, like I see the tip. I'm prepared. Let's capitalize on it. Let's play fearless. So that's all I got for you. That's not numerical, just things that I want to improve on. Because I think those little things over the course of a season will allow you to take what you do the year prior and make it better. Because it's little tweaks.
It's the little things on a day-to-day that add up over time that create big change.
Well said.
I'm just going to follow you around and summarize.
Yeah, might as well.
Now, it's been, you've shed nothing but beautiful golden sunlight on this podcast for the past hour.
You are in Florida.
Talking about your hair. Yeah. Oh, yep. It's that Florida sunshine.
That is. Got the palm trees.
Thank you so much for hopping on. I know that you got a million different things that you could be doing, but you're here with us.
I appreciate the time. I appreciate you always coming through my data and giving me new crazy things to try in my kitchen on a foam pad. So yeah, keep hitting me with any crazy balancing exercises and combing through the data and check out those jumps from today. Not very good, but that's why we have it. It's accountability.
Part of the process.
That's right.
Loden Sports Outlier Sessions Season 2 debut. Brendan Donovan, St. Louis Cardinals. We'll see you next time.